The Chinese government has tried to realize a governance model that has never existed in human history. Surveillance, censorship, repression. But at the same time, China is about, fun stuff, high technology, entertainment. This is a model that the Chinese government wants to create, and I think this is very dangerous. When you succeed in China, the next step is to look abroad. So that's why you should care. I was born and grew up in China, and it's a country that has severe censorship. So when I was growing up, I didn't feel I could express my thoughts, express my feeling, and it was a very repressive feeling. I never liked it. This is something that people who don't grow up and live in that kind of society, they just don't know. It feels, I don't know, like how do I convey? I think probably my job is to do the best I can to convey that, to convey the feeling of being suffocated because you just can't say what you think, how you feel. It's innate, it's fundamental that people want to express their thinking and their feelings. And nobody in China can do that. Human rights defenders in China, lawyers, activists, make huge sacrifices in order to make China a better society. I write about them, I talk to the media about them, and I try to get them out of jail when they are in jail. Those people are so courageous. Working with them, having this privilege to be part of that movement, that is a special experience. As a human being, to live in this world, to be able to work with this group of people who are so inspiring. I think one thing that, every time it still surprises me and delights me is that there are people from everywhere, whether they're inside China or outside China, they would reach out to me in usually a secret fashion, saying that I'm reading what you published, I'm following Human Rights Watch's work, and good work, keep going. Those people are not on the surface talking about, how they are concerned about the rights issues in Xinjiang, how they're concerned about internet censorship. But those people do exist, and our work do reach them. And that kind of keeps me going, despite the, I would say, lack of obvious or very quick results of our work. The kind of human rights violation the Chinese government is committing and will likely continue to commit if nobody stops them will pose a fundamental threat to everybody on this planet. We simply cannot give up. And just by witnessing how people persevere, it tells you the human spirit is so hard to crush. Because of that, I have hope for Hong Kong, for China.
We're just rounding up a trip here in the Nuba Mountains.
We're here in San Luis Potosí, Mexico.
I am here in Harare.
Human rights protect all of us, but they are perhaps most meaningful when we think about the most vulnerable members of our societies.
What is Human Rights Watch? I see Human Rights Watch as the messenger for people who have been victims of human rights violations.
Human Rights Watch, what we're really trying to do is understand the kinds of suffering that people are going through and how we can help to prevent that suffering.
Sometimes people tell me that, Eva, you are the first person that, sat down with us and listened to my whole story. Now you can tell it to the world.
When we talk about migrants and refugees, a lot of the time people will talk about desperate people. And I really prefer to talk about desperate reasons, desperate situations, desperate risks, and courageous people. Because the people that I've met are some of the most extraordinarily courageous and resilient people you can imagine. It takes so much bravery to embark on these dangerous journeys and so much enterprise. And I've seen that in young boys, I've seen it in older women, I've seen it just in so many different people from so many different countries.
How many days since they've had the medicine?
My work at Human Rights Watch primarily involves speaking with refugees and migrants about their experiences at home and on the journey, but also what happens to them once they reach a country in Europe, and to collect those stories and try to make sense of them and understand where the responsibilities lie for the abuses that they have faced along the way, and what responsibility European countries have for the hardships that they face on these migration journeys and once they reach European borders. One of the things that we've seen over the years is how the countries of the European Union and the European Union as a whole have really focused on trying to seal their borders. And one of the ways in which the European Union has done this that is most upsetting, is most abusive in terms of people's rights, is the cooperation with Libya, enabling Libyan forces to intercept boats and return people to horrific detention centers where they are held in extraordinarily abusive conditions. So when I go to Libya with my colleague who's an expert on Libya, and we go into these detention centers and we sit down and talk to people, we are getting their stories and we are looking around, we are taking in all of the details about where they are being held, how they've been treated, and we're taking all of that in order to then go back to Brussels and sit down with European policymakers and say, look, this is what you are aiding and abetting. This is what your policies are helping to maintain. You are contributing directly to the suffering and abuse that these women and men and children are facing in Libya. So you need to change. In my work, in my experience, I guess I've felt that people who have been displaced, people who have had to leave everything they know, that those are people who are incredibly vulnerable. They find themselves in places they don't understand, surrounded by people speaking languages they don't speak, and they are prey. I think history has shown that upheaval can completely destroy the lives of anyone. We may one day face these terrible decisions about whether to leave, how to take our young children with us and keep them safe along the way. We can't feel that we are somehow innately protected from ever facing that kind of situation.
My name is advocacy, and I'm the Greece researcher at Human Rights Watch. My work is focusing mainly on the human rights of asylum seekers, migrants, refugees coming to Greece. Sometimes I feel guilty that, we cannot do something immediately about people, like, offer milk or, take them to the doctor or take them out of the conditions in which they are. But my experience is that whenever I explain to them that, we cannot do that, we cannot provide medical assistance or legal advice, but what I can do is, listen to their story and take it to those responsible, they realize really well what we're doing, and I can see that they appreciate a lot this, and for me this is what I can offer to them. I can, sit with them and listen, and I take time to do the interview. I don't do it quickly and in rush. I sit and I may spend 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, even 3 hours sometimes, to sit in the tent of this refugee family, get to know them and speak with them and chat, and also not take notes all the time, but also just make a connection with them.
And here is what the government needs to do. Sometimes they listen to us and some other times they don't. But we push.
So right now in Greece, the situation for refugees continues to be, really problematic, really bad. Greece is one of the main entries of migrants and asylum seekers, and some of them are children traveling without their parents or someone that can take care of them. Normally, what the Greek government should do when, such children enter the Greek territory is to protect them, to take care of them, to place them in a house, on a shelter, or in a foster family. But because there is a lack of accommodation facilities in Greece for unaccompanied children, the Greek government puts them in detention, practically placing them in the basement of police stations where jail cells are. I always felt that this is such a gross violation, the fact that children are put behind bars in the basement of police stations in Greece, that at some point it has to change, because it is against European law, it is against, there's been decisions from the European Court of Human Rights, judgments against Greece. So at some point it needs to change. We just needed to find the right tools to make that change. We started working on that issue in 2008, more than 10 years ago, and we never stopped working on it. Our last tool to use involves asking the public to take action in order to push the Prime Minister of Greece and calling him to end detention of children. And it happened. The government listened to us, and finally, in December 2020, a few months ago, the Greek Parliament passed an amendment that ends once and for all detention for unaccompanied migrant children. Surprisingly enough, even though I have, as a person, I have public speaking fear, when it's about advocacy meetings, even with high-level officials, I don't feel stressed. I feel an urge to communicate to them what's wrong and what they need to do in order to change things. What's their responsibility? So I feel some kind of urge to, push things forward. Change takes a lot of time to happen. I try to show that refugees are people like us. We should accept them. We should accept them because this can happen to us too. You never know.
I know and feel and see and experience that we do have access. We can go and talk to heads of state and tell the stories that need to be told. So over the past decade, there has been a shift in the way we talk about migrants and refugees, and we talk about their rights. We have seen nowhere near the kind of progress that we need to see, but it is on the agenda. It is part of the conversation now.
It feels wrong to be so privileged in my own personal situation and not to be able to give back. And I think part of giving back is speaking out about the abuses that people around the world face daily, and speaking out about them even when they're uncomfortable. I've been working on Syria for over 3 years now. And every year you see the public's interest in the crisis decrease. And so Part of the strategy that we have as researchers is really to highlight the voice of the people on the ground and show that they are not different from you. Like, this could be happening to you. Idlib is the last anti-government held area in Syria. Right now, Idlib is home to 3 million people, over half of them displaced, and all of whom do not want to return to the Syrian government control. For 11 months, what the Syrian-Russian military alliance had done was basically attack hospitals, schools, markets, with the apparent purpose of forcing these people out or killing them in order for them to be able to retake the area easily. We used open source methodology to document these attacks, interview witnesses, and verify that the Syrian-Russian military alliance had violated international law. I think what I'm most proud of in this work is the persistence that I and others have shown in pushing for results.
Europe has been completely silent on these abuses because they themselves don't want to take responsibility.
We've raised our findings with leaders again and again and again. And finally, in March 2020, when the ceasefire in Idlib was negotiated between Syria and Russia, that's really when we felt like we had actually done something meaningful. I think what's hopeful about the situation in Syria is that people are able to pick themselves up again and again to want something better for their children and still be attached to this concept of dignity, of wanting to live their lives in the best way possible. Given everything that's happened in Syria, you'd imagine that this is not a priority for them, but it is, and it continues to be, and they're willing to sacrifice everything for it. I think what Human Rights Watch has done here is really be very persistent in raising our findings again and again, and using the same recommendations without giving up for years. And now, this year, we're seeing the fruits of that persistence. The stories of Syrians in Syria and across the world deserve to be heard. Their experiences deserve to be shared. And this is something that we are completely committed to.